So, let's see, we have, at this point in time with item E.
Well, we're still on J.
It's J, which is now E.
Oh, I got you.
Jay-Z.
Okay.
Yep, and so we have three options. Option A would be to move to uphold the discipline action. 2, move to amend the discipline action. Or 3, move to reverse the discipline action.
I would make a motion that the disciplinary action be maintained, but that in the individual's personnel record, that it be amended from the charge, or however you want to refer to that, be amended to an administrative issue, something that's a little bit more benign, still in the record. But in this case, we would be maintaining the disciplinary action, but we're also going to change the wording in the personnel record to something that'd be more palatable to an administrative action was taken.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion on this? All right.
I
so-
guess my thoughts would be to be precise and clear on what you are amending and what you're amending
Okay.
the action to.
Maybe I could use some help on that, what we want, because I think that the issue about what the
About the closed session.
the issue that we discussed in the closed session, I think that we were running into some difficulty with the semantics of what was existing in the record. And I would say that we maintain the disciplinary action. I think that it was appropriate. I think it was consistent with previous action that had been taken. So there's a consistency in that regard. But I think that the wording within the personnel record should be toned down to maybe an administrative action was taken against this individual on such and such a date, and leave it like that.
I think I understand, and that clarifies for me. There was verbiage that was very palatable, but some brought on other words or definitions that could, in their mind, be synonymous, similar words to what was used.
Yes.
However, those words that were used
So
were not
the-
unpalatable, but I can understand.
So the administrative action was taken for a policy issue.
We're
You know,
Change to what?
An administrative action regarding a policy issue
Okay.
is in the record. And that changes the wording that I think that I'm trying to be discreet here too. So I think that satisfies both, I think, because I do think the disciplinary action was, like I said, it was fair, just, it was appropriate, proportional, and it was consistent. So that part remains the same, but we changed the record, and the record then would reflect a disciplinary, an administrative action regarding personnel policy.
And they said it was the wording that they had the problem with as well,
Correct.
so it
Correct.
would hopefully,
And I think, and then they're, trying to get this to be balanced.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh. I don't even want to talk about this anymore. So let's just go ahead. We've got a motion, we have a second, right?
Correct.
This needs to be roll call.
Supervisor Gunning,
No.
Treasurer Rice,
yes.
Trustee Hauk,
Yes.
Trustee Mikes,
Yes.
Trustee Lanning,
Yes.
Trustee Worley,
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes.
All right, so we move on to item E. This would be item F. This is sewer. Go ahead, Mark.
So this is essentially the same thing that we just talked about as it related to the water, only the sewer. I don't think I need to go over all the details again. It's the same thing, adjusting language to clarify for additions and expansions on facilities.
All right, we need a motion.
Well, I will make the motion that we, as the Board of Trustees, adopt ordinance number 2019-05, which is an ordinance to amend various provisions of the Charter Township of Union sewer rate and mandatory connection ordinance number 1979-4 as amended.
Support. I'd support this measure in the fact that we are going through ordinance updates. This is listed as a 1979-4 amended ordinance. It has been some time since additional narrative has been brought to this ordinance that will make clarification for our citizens as well as for the board and the staff to understand, and it is a prudent move to do so.
Well, again, we're replacing now in this case, it's a 40-year-old ordinance and updating the wording, which I think is long overdue. Same thing in terms of process and content applies as before in terms of the water. The concern I have with in terms of the content, particularly the hookup fees, I hear that a lot from folks regarding the costs to do business in Union Township with the hookup fees, and I think it may even at times restrict some development. So again, trying to find something that's going to be more workable. So we're not discouraging development in our township. And the same token, we're recapturing our costs to do the hookups. And again, I don't know what all these things cost, and that's where, again, if we have an opportunity to go through this. So again, I will support this in terms of the process, the change of language, the clarity of the language, but I would like for us also to be looking at the hookup fees that are associated with the sewer and also the usage of the sewer relative to the water as well.
Until the language is changed in this, there's no way that I could ever support anything like this to impose a number upon industry and commercial at the beginning of whatever they're doing, whether it's initial construction or adding an addition, and not having the ability to adjust the rate accordingly to what their actual usage is complete and utter BS, and it shouldn't be supported. I've heard stories from Jeff Harrison, $66,000, I believe he was. Holiday Inn, $100 and some thousand. Lux's, $18,000. And a lot of people look at the Lux's as being wrong in what they did. I think they were heroes because they stood up for what they believed. So I will never vote for this ordinance until the ordinance itself is changed.
Well, in this process, we're amending the existing ordinance to clarify language, which in my mind is a good step forward to provide that clarity that's necessary.
So that people cannot appeal. Let's clarify that. That's what this language change is all about. It takes away the ability of somebody like the Luxes to appeal an unjust ordinance.
You have to stop referring to people.
I don't care.
Well, you
We've
should,
already
It's
said
against-
Lux mattered multiple times.
and there is a discretion that we have here at the board, and I wish that
We have to.
you would adhere to it as well.
Okay.
Call the question.
Okay, roll call.
Supervisor Gunning.
No.
Treasurer Rice.
Yes.
Trustee Hauk.
No.
Trustee Micus.
Yes?
Trustee Lannan.
Yes.
Trustee Worley?
Yes.
Clerk Cody, yes?
Moves us into new business item number G, policy governance discussion. And at this point in time, at 9:02, unfortunately, I have to close my business. So at this point in time, I'm going to relieve myself of my duties in this meeting, and I'll be passing upon this duty over to the clerk. Ms. Cody, would you like to take over the spot?
Sure.
Thank you all.
It would have been nice to have notice of
Yeah.
that prior
How-
to
how
the start
come
of
this
the
has-
meeting.
is.
How
Well-
come this happened?
Yeah. Well, we still will
Can I get a
have,
motion to postpone this policy till the next meeting? The policy governance about the supervisor should be postponed till the next meeting when supervisor is present. Anyone?
Well, we're at the,
Oh, where are we at? I'm skipping.
We're
some.
at Board of Trustees annual review.
Okay.
I would say that go with the F, the
F,
G,
right.
the H, but hold off on the I and place that on the agenda for the next meeting. Is that?
Yeah, I just,
There should have, I'm just going to respond here, because to just abruptly decide that he's going to leave to close his business when he's a supervisor of the township, I think is totally inappropriate. The fact that we had no notice of him doing that, we should have been informed at the start of the meeting, folks, I need to leave at 9 o'clock, I need to close my meeting, and therefore I'm going to ask that Lisa take over as the chair in this case. That should have been done ahead of, that would be the protocol. That's the appropriate way that you deal with a board. But again, it's Gunning's way of the way he goes about dealing with this board, which is always defiant, it's always contentious, it's always combative, and here we are again, sitting here. So I say we hold off on the board's review of the supervisor's role to the board for the next meeting, because I think Mr. Gunning should be here to listen to what we have to say.
his business has been open for the last few meetings.
Exactly.
So he didn't have to leave at 9 o'clock for any of his other meetings, and we've gone beyond 9 o'clock before.
So I'm sorry, Lisa, to
So when we get
interrupt
to
there.
that one, we'll just
Okay.
postpone it.
And thank you for jumping in here.
Yes, Mark?
So the next item on the agenda is an opportunity for the board to review the manager's compliance with policy governance item 2.5.10, cash flow adequacy. There's a memo regarding this policy on page 144 of your agenda packet. The policy states that the township shall not fail to maintain an adequate level of cash flow. The manager interprets this policy to indicate that cash availability for the major funds should not fall below certain thresholds that are defined further in the policy. 2.4.3 is where you'll find those. And that accounting for other considerations is defined as follows, that the general fund should have at a minimum of 4 months of budgeted expenditures in ready cash for the current fiscal year, that the fire fund should have 3 quarterly payments that would be due to the city of Mount Pleasant for their annual fire service contract available in the fire fund as available cash, that the East and West DDA funds have 2 months of normal operational expenditures available in the form of ready cash, and that the water and sewer fund has 2 months of budgeted expenses worth of cash readily available. This interpretation is based on a review of our annual cash flow needs of the various funds. We pulled data from the general ledger, and on page 145 of your agenda packet, it's indicated what the current cash levels are, the amounts required for compliance in each of the funds that I just went through, and whether or not that math works out to be whether we're compliant or not. And it indicates that we are in compliance. So this is an opportunity for the board to look at this policy, adjust it if they want,
So board, in my review of this policy, I was undoubtedly able to say that our manager, in regards to 2.510 cash flow adequacy, is in strict compliance in every measure of the policy. But the thing that I would throw out for consideration at some point in time would actually have to do with the number of months indicated in our current policy of budgeted expenditures. And talk about that under the general fund, it talks about 4 months, as was indicated. You know, I think it'd be appropriate to review and talk about these at a point in time, after some thought has been given to that by the board.
I think that's a good point, Tim. I mean, I compliment Mark on this. You know, we well exceed our required amount of cash flow in every one of the funds, and we do that in a spectacular fashion. We have a very healthy fund balance, and I like the idea that we have money on hand both for present, future, and for emergencies. So we're well funded throughout. But I think for me, the question maybe that comes up is, you know, when is enough enough? Should we be looking at more in terms of increasing the number of months that we want to have available rather than 4 months? And 4 months is a heck of a lot, and if you're really script for cash and you know, some type of emergency. But on the other hand, you know, maybe we want to also look at the amounts that are in there, and is that more than what is necessary? So I think the question is, when is enough enough? Because this is wonderful. I mean, I'd rather see it this way than being in the red. But I think we need to look at is just the overall amounts that we have in the relative funds. Is this what we should be doing with the money? So I agree with you, Tim. I think that we should be looking at either the amounts that are set aside or maybe increase the number of months that we want to make sure that we have a cushion for. Could be both, you know, maybe doing both those things. But we are, you know, certainly exceeding our expectations there.
I agree. Anyone else?
No, yes, I have something else just to, my confirmation is that I see the data, and it does say that the manager is in compliance with the policy on cash flow adequacy.
Yes.
And I'd be glad to participate in future conversations and discussions about revising it.
And just to help all of us with the process, there will always be an evaluation form in the packet that has boxes for you to check if you want to help you and help me demonstrate compliance all the way from was it submitted timely to, you know, is the interpretation reasonable? There's an area for you ought to throw down suggested wording if you do want to change or think about changing the policy. So it's a good way to capture some of those thoughts.
And Mark, you would like those
Would you like, yeah,
sent your way as.
That would be very helpful to try
Okay.
to address the concerns or the issues that you want to, so we can keep this policy, your policy, and adjust it according to your needs.
paper or electronic, or you don't care?
I don't care if you want to keep a copy yourself, then just email it to me or something.
Okay.
Or I can take a hard copy, I don't care. Thank you.
Okay, the next, everybody ready for the next one?
Yep.
Okay, so we have item H. Discussion, review policy governance 2.7 and focus of grants and contracts.
So this policy, 2.7, part of your policy governance document. Paperwork for this is on page 147 of your agenda packet. And the wording of this policy is that the township manager may not enter into any grants or contractual arrangements that fail to emphasize primarily the production of the ends, and those are the 6 ends that we have, and secondarily to avoid unacceptable means. And then recently, as June of earlier, I guess just 2 weeks ago, this policy was amended to also indicate or to say that the manager shall not submit a Saginaw Chippewa tribal 2% grant application without prior approval by the Board of Trustees. So that was added. My interpretation of this policy is that it indicates that all grant applications and contractual arrangements that we're executing must be done with the goal of contributing to the accomplishment of and be consistent with the approved means that have been that are articulated in your policy document, those being 1 through 6 and their respective subsections. Additionally, as it relates to the 2%, that this sub-policy is interpreted such that there are going to be competing interests out there that might want to apply for 2% grant money, and to ensure that those are fully vetted and weighed, that the grant applications for 2% money should come before this body for approval to ensure that you all are weighing those competing interests. The data that I have put down here, and I will acknowledge it's not exhaustive, but I listed 11 items that I think support that the manager is in compliance with this policy. We've executed participation agreements for various road projects that were signed with the Isabella County Road Commission. That gets to the road work part of the ends policies. We've successfully applied for fire protection reimbursement grants from the state of Michigan. There's state-owned buildings in the township. The state will reimburse us certain monies if we make application, which we did and were awarded. Similarly, as it relates to the DDAs, the state will reimburse DDAs if applications made for reimbursement on lost personal property taxes. We applied and received $55,000 in partnership with the City of Mount Pleasant, and there's policies within 1 through 6 that talk about partnering. We were awarded a state treasury competitive grant assistant program grant in the amount of $29,300 that helped pay for the joint water study. So we have 2 things going on there. We're partnering with the community to analyze the situation, and we're partnering to apply at the state for some available funding. Labor contracts that were negotiated in 2018, which were approved by the board, primarily addressed and focused on cost sharing of health care benefits and maintaining some pay levels in support of the recruitment and retention efforts that is part of the goals. We have done quite a bit of work on sewer and water main televising. All those contracts are brought to the board. Their purpose is to maintain the quality of the infrastructure that we have here as it relates to the utilities. We applied for and were awarded $13,000 in grant funding for a wellhead protection program. We've negotiated and brought to the board a renewal of a lease with AT&T for antennas on top of the water towers that increase monthly rent and increase the annual escalation fee. So the manager feels, I feel that we're in compliance, and this is the data that supports that. Be happy to discuss this more if you'd like.
Well, the data presented certainly does support it. It shows many of the works that the board manager have set forth to attempt and accomplish. But what's important is as we seek grants and enter into contracts, there's oftentimes matching money that needs to go along with grants. It has to be vetted and assured that it's budgeted for. And as was mentioned, talking with each and every board member to understand what they may put forth as priorities and have clear and exhaustive discussion on those points of views and prioritize. Very important. And as mentioned, this is listed in the limitations as to what the manager shall not do. And outside of those things, reasonable interpretation allows that business to get done at the administrative, operational levels where it should be done.
Anyone else?
Nope.
I marked yes on my evaluation, so on all of them. Go to the next one.
This next one is more focused for the board to discuss. It's your annual review of Board Governance Policy 3.5, which is titled Board Commission Community Linkage. The policy itself is not too long, but I've reproduced it in its entirety on page 152 of your agenda packet. So this is for the board's own discussion.
So from my perspective and review of this, actually, Trustee Mikas started down this path some time ago this evening when he brought up the idea of he had not heard in other meetings, or have we even given the opportunity for our member who sits on the Cultural and Recreation Committee to come before the board, probably even more specifically in the joint boards and committees that get together annually, and have a chance to listen and understand what's going on in that commission. So I had happened to note that, and I also included that, we don't have the Board of Review listed on there. We don't have the Construction Board of Appeals. The Hannah Park Advisory Board doesn't join in on that, or the Sidewalk and Pathways Prioritization Committee. So I just wanted to throw that and bring it to the attention of the board as something we should consider to be even stronger in our linkage, our community linkage and board commissions. So that was my thoughts on that, and wanted to share that with the board.
I'll add to what you're saying. We have not had of late our intergovernmental liaison committee, which would be the county, city, and Union Township. We haven't had meetings for a while now. They seem to have lapsed. I'd like to see those get picked up because I found those really helpful, both in terms of to hear what the other entities are doing, as well as looking at some coordination of projects that we could be looking at as well. What I do in terms of, but despite what the parts of our organizations that we aren't right now coming in here and talking to us, I do think that we really have a good, strong linkage with the community, different ways. I mean, one, I like our annual meeting that we have every year, with the PC, the ZBA, all the different networking within our own organization to hear what the different entities are doing and just have a chance to talk with one another. I also want to give everyone here a compliment. I think you're all very, very diligent in your role as board liaison to the various community entities, whether it's the city council or the road commission or the county commission, the sidewalk. I'm really impressed with the fact that, we make a strong commitment, my commitment with the tribe. We have a strong commitment in going to the meetings, interacting, and then coming back and reinforming the board. So I really feel, even though I'm not going to the county meetings or the city meetings, I have a handle on what's going on, so I really appreciate that. And I think also just the way we are, we all live in this community and we all interact with residents, and, we hear both very positive things and we hear things that are of concern. And we're able to bring those things back to the board to find ways to either develop projects or roads, or, how to maybe overcome some of the problems. So I feel overall we've done a pretty good job with the community linkage. But I think what you're talking about, bringing in those other organizations, the other groups, would be important too, to hear what they're doing as well. So,
We continually invite people to come to our meetings.
right.
I mean, how many times have we said it on TV here? Out in public, we encourage people to come to our meetings.
So Tim, following up on your recommendation, I'd support what you're saying, that we revise that policy statement that lists who shall be invited to the annual meeting and include the others that you identified.
I didn't list everybody that was on there, just because I ran out of ink, but there was the library, our library group and others, so.
Right.
Just how we make that happen, is
Yeah.
gonna be a functional thing
But-
at the board.
I agree, and to me, just the fact that we have quite a long list of boards, commissions, and such that our citizens are appointed to, really does, to me, speak about our linkage in the community. Sure, it's not Phil Mikas at every one of those meetings, but we have our representatives at those meetings, so we are linked through the process of establishing those committees and assigning people to them. Well, assigning them, we nominate them, and they accept, and they gladly participate.
I just looked that date up at that joint meeting. It's the 27th of August.
Okay.
Mr.
Sorry, right there.
Supervisor?
Okay, so now we're on item J.
Okay, can I ask a clarifying question?
Is there an action item there? Sure.
It sounds like it, and I just want to make sure I understand it. We have several boards and commissions listed in our agenda packet, and my question is, are you asking that representatives from each of these be invited to that annual meeting, whether it be a board member or the executive director or all of them, if they want, in all cases, or would you like written reports from some of them? Is it a matter of courtesy, or some of these you have direct connection between your individual selves and in these bodies? Others you don't.
Do you think Brian Smith even knows he's on that one commission?
Oh,
Absolutely.
that board meets all the time.
So, knowing that joint meeting is fairly lengthy, there's a number of presentations of the committees and boards that traditionally have gone to that, who do go up and speak with a prepared statement generally. So I'm not demanding anything. I wanted to bring this out for consideration. However, my thought would be each and every board that we have nominations for folks to fill and have expiration dates should be invited. But from my point of view, I wouldn't mind at least having formally ask the
Updates.
Cultural and Recreational Commission to speak to the board, or to the joint boards at that meeting, would be my request. So invite everybody, but formally ask a member of the Cultural and Recreational Committee to speak, is a thought.
Would you like them, like you have the Mid-Michigan Development Corp. occasionally come to this
Yes.
body and speak?
That's
Would
what I
that
was
be a
thinking.
better
Yeah.
place for you to?
I think if
In my
we-
mind, that would be an acceptable alternative. I would like to invite them to attend the meeting so that they can, every member of every commission and board to attend, so they can mingle with us and with their cohorts in the other divisions or groups.
And that's easy enough.
And a report, a summary report may be useful for the CRC and the library board and the dog bark park to be presented to the attendees so they can get a picture of what is all the other stuff going on and where our connections and linkages are. So that addresses my interest for that meeting. I'd be satisfied also with a CRC update at this board meeting, because there may be more, it would give the person a lengthier, an opportunity to provide more information than a two-paragraph or half-a-page summary.
I like the idea of having them come in periodically and just
Yeah.
presenting, 5 minutes and hear what they're doing, and we can maybe have a little bit of question and answer if we need it. I think it'd be good. Along
Okay,
with.
so
the
I will,
meeting.
send out, we'll make sure we invite everybody to the annual meeting. And then we'll create opportunities for at least once a year, each of these bodies, except the ones that are really like the planning commission and whatnot, but the Hannah's Park Advisory Board, the library, Mid-Michigan Area Cable Consortium, the CRC, just as we do with the Mid-Michigan Development Corp. I'll
Yeah.
have them come in annually and give you a report on what they're doing.
Perfect.
Perfect.
In my mind, thank you.
Thanks.
For item J,
We're done.
We're in
with that.
an
We're
extended
done.
public comment.
did we
Now we're gonna-
postpone
Well,
that?
Yeah.
we,
We're
don't
gonna
we
put-
have to actually
You have to make a motion. to
make a
postpone it.
motion to,
Postpone it to the next meeting.
Okay.
Oh,
I'll make a motion that we postpone and put on our next meeting's agenda the discussion, action, Board of Trustees annual review of the board governance policy number 3.6, the supervisor's role in the board process.
And I'd support that if you would amend your motion to indicate position on the agenda.
Yes,
That it would
I was
be
just gonna say
amongst
number
the
one or
first
something.
3 items of new business.
so it's before 9 o'clock.
Oh, yeah,
Position, yeah, make it before 9.
before 9 o'clock.
No, I
In
think
the first-
specifically
I
if
hear
we would,
No, I
if
agree.
you would amend your motion to state that it would be within the first 3 items of the new business agenda, and then I could support your motion.
Okay,
I totally agree.
I will add that.
I wasn't gonna say 9 o'clock.
So it's added.
And I support your motion.
Okay.
Motion and support, all in favor?
Discussion?
Oh, discussion.
Um,
Forgot that part.
I find it a little challenging to consider not addressing this now. But I don't think we have to. Our supervisor virtually has one duty, well, a couple duties, to chair our board meeting and to be a voting member of this board. And I saw the most bizarre thing happen where our chair of this body, our supervisor, went AWOL on us with no predisposition of the information. Obviously, he could have because he had a specific time all of a sudden when he abruptly deserted us. And I would call reckless abandonment and throw his duties, thrust them upon one of his peers to handle the duties that he was elected to handle. If this question comes before us in a board meeting, I would almost anticipate another abandonment. But what I witnessed is unacceptable, immature, consistent with the way he's operated over the course of his tenure as the Union Township supervisor, and very uncharacteristic of any professional at a board that I've ever experienced.
I agree with you, Tim. I've been on many boards, and I've never seen the chairman just get up and walk out.
I think it's regretful that it's deteriorated to this point. This combative, argumentative, contentious, defiant behavior has been part of the rogue state with Mr. Gunning from day one. And I think it's a very regretful and a very unfortunate situation. I think that there's a lot that he can contribute to the board, but when he wants to make things so toxic, and I think it just takes away from the spirit and from the goodwill of what we're trying to do. I think it's very unfortunate. And I think tonight, I don't even have words for it. I've never in my career, and I've been in many boards, I've been a psychologist for 50 years, I have never had such a disruptive, professional relationship that I have seen that's been exhibited by Mr. Gunning and this board. And I think it's really unfortunate for him and for us as well. And particularly, it's unfortunate for the residents because they have to hear this bickering each and every time we have these meetings. And I think it's just unfortunate. So I agree with you, Tim.
We've asked him to change many times.
Mhm.
He's agreed to change. 6 months ago, he told us he was all sorry, that he had had a talk with his spouse, and he said that he indicated to us that he was going to change. I agree with you, this dates back to even before we were elected. I mean, I think you and I know the specific time. It was November of 2015.
Mhm.
And ever since then, he's got a vendetta against the township.
But right now, we're addressing Norm's motion to move this item to
Yes.
Yeah.
next meeting.
Thanks, Phil.
That's what I was trying to, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes. Okay, so now we're going to extended public comment restricted to 5 minutes regarding any issue. This is the opportunity for comments only, no questions.
Doug Bell, 955 Meadowbrook Drive. Just wanted to touch on my previous comments regarding a neighboring property owner's REU issue. I know that wasn't addressed tonight and wasn't meant to be. It wasn't part of the amendment. However, I think the amendment doesn't accomplish what this issue was over here. The amendment only prevents a property owner from appealing what an issue that they have with the township. So my concern is you're taking away a property owner's right to appeal a decision that has been made by the township, right or wrong. And I feel that that is not the way you would go about representing the residents in the best possible form. So, and the sewer is a whole nother issue that it can never be appealed in general. I just don't agree with that. I mean, it's like, we're able to appeal our taxes. So what if the assessor says somebody's house is worth $1 million and it's only worth $100,000? You can't appeal that? I just don't think that's a fair shake to the residents. It's not a fair shake to any of us. And I don't think the amendment does justice to the residents of the township. I think you went about correcting the issue the wrong way. I think it should have been corrected with what the issue actually was, not something to prevent the property owner from doing or appealing a decision. So basically what you're telling the residents, or you're telling me, or my opinion is that if I have an issue that regarding such a issue as that, I can't appeal it, so I just have to deal with it. The ordinance needs to be changed from its root, the structure needs to be changed, and that's my opinion. I'm not sure what structure we use. I sat with Mr. Stuhldreyer and Ms. Smith yesterday for about an hour and 15 minutes just to understand the rate structure and how it works. I just don't agree with the way it is. Everybody it should be done fairly, whether it's revisited every year with each property owner, whether it's revisited every 6 months. I sat with them. I don't know what the answer to that is. I thought what would be fair is kind of like you have assessments with your property. If the market goes up, your property gets reassessed and here's your new value. If it goes down, you get reassessed and it goes down. That to me would be the fair way to charge the residents. So, like I said, I don't have the answers. I don't sit in your seats. I don't see a lot of that stuff. But I am a developer. I do all these things with hookups and water and sewer. We do it in the city. We have no commercial developments in the township other than some hotels, but those were before probably any of this happened. So that's my 2 cents. You know, I certainly appreciate everything you guys do. I'm on the Union Township Planning Commission, so I volunteer my time as well. Appreciate what you guys do. I just would prefer to see, as a collective group, maybe correcting the root cause of the problem, not band-aiding over it and preventing a property owner from appealing a decision that they don't agree with. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Extended public comment closed at 9:39. Manager comments.
Thank you. Just a couple. I just want to remind everybody that with the 4th of July coming up, and I would wish everybody a safe and happy July 4th. But as a reminder, the consumer fireworks are only allowed on the days immediately preceding the 4th itself, and the day after the 4th. And they're not allowed between the hours of 1 a.m. and 8 a.m. So I just mentioned that so we're all considerate of our neighbors. At our next board meeting, July 10th, you'll see an agenda item where we'll be resuming our discussion on the 2020 budget development as it relates to the goals and the ends. And I think I have to send you out something that I'll make sure I do tomorrow, so you have plenty of time to get ready for that. And then I was mentioned earlier, the Planning Commission took up the Conservation District Special Condition Use Permit. They took action on it. Listening to the board collectively, I've referred that to the Sustainability Committee for some review and input before it comes to this body, and I anticipate it coming back to you July 10th as well, because they're meeting July 9th. So, thank you.
Anyone else? Oh, I got it. Sorry.
These are only
Final board comment. Oh, we have a couple. Do you want me to call you name by name, or does anybody have a comment?
I have none in addition.
I have one. Actually, I have one this time.
Good.
I would like the board to agree with me that we need a work session to work on these water and sewers, or just get knowledge of it. A work session, create a work session. We need at least 4 of us to agree to this before March can do it.
I agree.
I would support that.
Yeah, so if you
Agreed.
could create a work session for just some knowledge on this, so we can create, get this.
So you
Yeah, I
can
would-
better understand the
Yes.
current
Yes.
rate structure.
and then
Correct.
If we need to fix it, fix it.
We've been more than contemplating, but working towards what's called a cost of service study. That's what this is called that you all are talking about. And it's reviewing the utility system to understand what our costs are and how those costs ought to be recouped, because it is by the ratepayers. And there's a variety of methods to do that. But those are in-depth studies, and we need to do one. They're not back-of-the-envelope things. They're not done in a matter of weeks. They're done with professional support, because we're talking about a multi-million-dollar utility. But we do need to do it. But I think it's a good idea as a first step that you understand what the current rate structure is.
Yes.
Definitely.
It'll help you, because when that cost of service study is done, you will be faced with decisions as to, is the current rate structure what you want? Is it a different rate structure? Forget the dollar amounts. Is there different structure and bases for setting the rates? And there are multiple methods around the country. And there are, anytime you make a change in the rate structure of a utility, there's going to be winners and losers, and you need to understand that. The board has conducted cost of service studies in the past, has not implemented them because I think they got hung up on the winners and losers that come from these sort of things. So we'll put that study session together.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yeah, I have something I'd like to bring up. I know I told a couple of you guys I went to an open house. I sent some pictures out to everybody over at Jameson Park. I mean, Mark, if we don't have the money right now in a fund to replace all those tables and chairs over there immediately, I say we vote on it right now and pull it out of the general fund. I mean,
I thought I
He
communicated.
did.
You did.
yeah.
They're
But-
being replaced.
the whole,
Or
I
is it-
thought, I know you said that there were 8 replaced last week, whatever.
I was just giving you some additional
Oh,
background. The rate thrown away a couple weeks ago.
yeah, and like I mean, there were 8 I could have thrown out Saturday. I told Tim, I looked out,
Yeah,
I
we-
should have thrown them in the dumpster that day.
Yeah, we went over, and I don't know the results of it, but we're throwing away what's junk, and we're gonna replace it, and we'll do that soon. We don't, if it's above $10,000, they'll come to you, or if I consider it an emergency purchase, because we got people already booked, we'll
Yeah.
just buy it. But, yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw, like,
Definitely.
the other day, a guy just sat down in his chair, and when he fell, he twisted his ankle. And then another lady, she went to sit down, and, I don't know, we were joking around with her, my wife and I, because she was sitting with us, and we're like, what are you doing sitting on the floor? She goes, my chair just broke.
Yeah.
And so, okay, I'm sorry, thank you.
We'll get those replaced.
Motion to adjourn.
Well, I do want to say a couple things. One, I'm glad we're doing the study for the water sewer stuff, so that we can kind of get an understanding there, and try to work on, actually trying to understand it. And also, we've heard so many comments from people about it, so, we need to figure out what needs to happen. The other thing, and this is as far as I want it to go, but in regards to the supervisor, we don't know, what happened there. The only thing we didn't appreciate was the fact he left abruptly. He could have already had to close. We don't know. And so, I want us to be aware that, businesses have to close. Sometimes people call in, things like that, that happens. But notification is the only thing that we were upset with the way it was handled, not necessarily that he had to leave, but how it was handled. But yeah, that's all I have to say. So,
I do have one more.
Okay.
sorry.
Well, we have the State Little League tournament coming up.
Yes.
Is there anything we can do with the lawn across the street?
Across the street, right?
Right across the street from the hall. Open up the front door and look at the lawn.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I'll check, I haven't,
it's as
Notice.
high as these tables.
the one across Lincoln?
Yeah, right straight across the road.
Well, there's two roads that are
Well, right across
right
the road.
here,
from-
okay,
yeah.
right. Yeah, I'll take a look at it. If it's over a foot, it's in violation of the ordinance,
But
we'll send them a notice.
You know, we've got this tournament coming up and doesn't look good.
We have knocked on the door on the property to the north of the entrance to the park.
Yeah. That needs some
That
attention
will
too.
prove more of a challenge than the tall grass. But,
We need a
All right.
motion.
yeah, we'll send them a notice, have them cut it.
Anyone else?
I'll make a motion. We adjourn.
Anyone
I support.
All in favor?
I
Hi.
was gonna say no
Tim,
support on that.
I guess I did specific.